What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. There's been a lot of discussion around the language that's been used in some of Nintendo's EULA and their user agreement and how they can brick your system and some other parts of it. And now it looks like they're being challenged in one country that, I will say, some of the headlines that were going around seemed a bit off, maybe a little misleading, and we're going to go over exactly what's happening here today. Also, we are going to be talking about a PlayStation IP that is now making the jump to Xbox. Pretty big surprise online and certainly garnered quite a few reactions. And we also have to talk about, believe it or not, MindsEye once again, because it does seem like some of the top brass there is not happy with how it went down, and in fact, could be planning a relaunch for it. Anyway, all of that and more. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button. Helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members for the channel do get Newswave early. If you would like to learn more about that, click the join button or the link in the description down below. And we're going to start today with Anthem. I know, right? Who saw that one coming? Well, Anthem, believe it or not, has actually still been working this whole time. And I say working because it is reliant on an internet connection, as in while you can play it completely by yourself, you still need to have that always online check-in for it to work. It looks like that's coming to an end. Now we can see this is posted. This is over on EA's website saying we have an important update to share regarding Anthem. After careful consideration, we'll be sunsetting Anthem on January 12th, 2026. This means that the game will still be playable online for the next 180 plus days. As of today, you can no longer purchase in-game premium currency, but you can still use your remaining balance until the servers go offline, at which point the game just won't work anymore. That's it. Anthem's gone. And now, look, I'm not here to say Anthem's is this great game and it should stick around, but we talked about the Stop Killing Games initiative. This would play directly into that because there are people out there who have bought Anthem just outright, and now it's just going to be, if you bought the disc version, just a coaster that you have, just because it has that online check-in that's required. There's no plan, seemingly, to sunset and have it just be an offline single-player only game that maybe in 10 or 15 years people want to write a retrospective about and check in on again about how we were all wrong about it. I don't know. But now in this case, it's just gone. So I guess if you were just curious about Anthem for some reason, go ahead and check it out before January. Maybe I'll even pop in to get some footage just for being able to archive it. Just for archive's sake, since, yeah, after January, it's just gone. Also, we do have a new Battlefield game coming up here in roughly the next 6 to 7 months. It should be out in the first half of next year, just based on what EA's been saying about sort of their roadmap to investors for it. And there was one report that popped up from Ars Technica that really dove into some of the development for it and even expectations, which, like, you can see this. This is over on Eurogamer, who's covering the report, saying EA reportedly expects Battlefield 6 to have 100 million players, 3 times more than the series bestseller. Now, in terms of players, that's just cumulative players, like over time, right? So you could have 10 million here, 10 million there, 20 million there, and eventually it adds up to 100 million players. The thing with that is 2042 capped out so far at about 22 million players. We're looking at 4 to 5 times the amount of that game, which that game wasn't well received. I think what they're doing here is, in terms of expectations, they're looking at Call of Duty. Like, Warzone has been able to climb past the 100 million player mark. Don't really know if Battlefield 6 is like, they're shooting for the high mark, certainly. I mean, I feel like I would have looked and said, you know what? Let's just get past 2042 and then go for maybe double that. Maybe we'll go to 50 million, 100 million. Oh, good luck with that. We'll see how that one turns out when it gets fully revealed and it comes out here, like I said, in the next half year or so. Oh, and real quick about the Perfect Dark stuff, how people have been questioning that gameplay. Well, we do have one person who worked on the game, give us a bit more insight exactly to what we saw there. This we can see over on Blue Sky. This is from Adam McDonald. Says this demo, that being the Perfect Dark one, it is actually in game. It was one of 3 leveled. I was one of the 3 level designers who worked on it. It worked best if you played it the way the person played in the video plays it, but it still worked even if you didn't hit the marks perfectly. Now this is on the heels of, I know, Kotaku editor, and I think a few other people mentioned that it was just fake, like the whole thing. Not necessarily. And look, it's certainly very curated, very walled off, and it's a vertical slice, but it did show, apparently, kind of what they were angling at here with this Perfect Dark game, which I'm sure makes it sting even more that it was just canceled and the initiative were shut down, because if they could have pulled something like this off, it would have been very impressive. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Nintendo and some of the legal stuff they have in their end user license agreement, their EULA, which comes up a lot because yeah, there's stuff in there that you go, oh, that sounds like they have a ton of control over the system that I bought for $450 or $500. Now, come to find out, naturally, people start to look back in time at what some of the other end user license agreements from Nintendo has said, even back to the Wii or the 3DS, and there are certainly clauses in there that mention similar things when it comes to bricking your system or blocking it from online use based on what exactly you're doing with it. So in that sense, it's actually not that different. Still though, it does make you wonder, okay, is there a point in time where my system could be bricked? I'll say most likely if you're sticking with, well, you know, just playing games and maybe not using that MIG switch, you're probably going to be okay, but the fact that it's there, of course, has people questioning and noticing nonetheless. Well, now it seems like at least one country is looking to maybe challenge some of this in court. Now, this we can see posted. I want to point this out because this is the article that really made the rounds online, okay? It's from Dexerto. You can see it says, Nintendo faces legal action over ability to brick Switch 2s whenever they want. Okay, so I know online that was a big thing about Nintendo bricking systems, their ability to just completely shut it down if they felt the need to, okay? But then you read like the first line of this article, and it says, Brazil's consumer watchdog is challenging Nintendo over EULA, end user license agreement terms, that allow the company to ban consoles from online services. So to me, that's very different than what they outlined here in the headline. To me, bricking a Switch 2 is different than banning that Switch 2 from online use, as in going on the eShop or playing online with other people. To me, bricking a Switch 2 means that it just does not work at all. Like, you turn it on, you get the logo, maybe you get an error message when you try to turn it on, and it just doesn't let you pass that. You can't get to the dashboard, you can't play any kind of games offline or anything like that. That's not really what's being outlined here, or even if you go over to the site that has sort of the press release here, the information that they put out, it's a similar thing. So here they say, Procon SP notified, this is all translated through Google Translate, Nintendo requesting changes to clauses considered abusive in contracts signed with Brazilian consumers. The main complaint involves the unilateral and unjustified cancellation of subscriptions to the company's services. Okay, so it looks like Nintendo has had to appoint, I guess, representative there in Brazil because they really don't have any headquarters or anything in that region. So it seems like they're going forward with that. The thing with this, though, is I think most people, and again, this dates back a long time. Think about the Xbox 360, and this is very common back then, where you'd go online and the system itself may have been soft modded or reset glitch hacked or it could have been JTAG. There were so many different things you could have done there. Or I know there was the whole thing where you can take the disk drive and you can flash the firmware and all of a sudden it plays burned disks, right? So all those things, then you add on auto aim with Call of Duty, you can get just a console itself banned from online use. Still works offline, but you can't sign into Xbox Live. That was it. They won't even ban your account necessarily, just that Xbox. That's sort of what's being pointed at here, and to me, this is just something we've seen consistently since really the advent of online gaming and consoles really being put together, especially with a paid subscription service where you have users that you at least have to show some sense of security with your infrastructure and your setup. So I don't necessarily know if this is the correct angle for them to be taking, because I think most people understand, hey, if you go online with a hacked system, it's probably getting banned and it's not going to be able to play online with other people or access the eShop or the subscription service. So what we know right now, for example, with the MIG switch, is that the Switch 2 system will be banned, but your account that may have a large library of digital games won't be banned. This has been shown completely in practice. Like, some have had banned Switch 2 systems. They've gone out and they've bought another Switch 2 and their account still works. So I'm not really sure how this is going to necessarily work out, because to me it seems pretty straightforward, but maybe they're also angling towards the idea of how far can Nintendo go with, say, bricking the system completely and then it doesn't work, and will they even look further into the EULA with some of the other language that Nintendo has? Next up, let's talk about a PlayStation game that is now making the jump to Xbox. And we sort of heard rumors about this last year, and in fact, Arrowhead was asked, hey, can you bring Helldivers 2 to Xbox? Is that possible? I mean, it's on PC, it's on PlayStation, we're just kind of missing Xbox right now. Well, it looks like that day has finally come. We can see this was posted. This is over on Helldivers 2 official account, saying a new dawn is upon us. Super Earth is expanding its operations and opening new enlistment centers. Xbox players, your opportunity to enlist is coming when Helldivers 2 deploys to Xbox Series X and S on August 26th. Pre-order Standard Edition and Super Citizen Edition of Helldivers 2 today. Now, that is the same day, August 26th, as Gears of War, so that's an interesting date to choose there. And this sent the internet spinning. Because if you look on the Xbox page, which, by the way, there's an entire Xbox Wire post that was made, the whole thing, it says PlayStation Publishing. So Helldivers is a PlayStation property. Arrowhead is not a PlayStation-owned studio, but it's Sony's intellectual property. It's their franchise. They own it. They're the publisher. So this, I'd look at this. Okay, MLB is, Sony doesn't own MLB. I know they develop the game and everything, but that was MLB who really wanted to do that. When you look at Destiny, they bought Destiny, and also Bungie with Marathon. While that was being developed and the idea was, okay, it's already kind of on its way there, go ahead. This does feel like something that Sony themselves, along with Arrowhead, decided, yeah, all right, we're going to go to Xbox with this because, well, there's money to be had there. And I know we've discussed Xbox, how with Game Pass in particular, it's kind of trained people to buy less and less games. But the one genre, I will say, that seems to do pretty well, especially with something like Destiny, are sort of these shooters, these PvE style games like this. And I'm sure they have plenty of data around something like Destiny to make a call like this. But again, it goes out to, whoa, these are very different times right now. With Microsoft moving games like Sea of Thieves, big live service title, going to PlayStation, and now Helldivers 2, big live service game, sold a ton of copies on PlayStation and PC, now making the jump to Xbox. And I'll tell you now, I don't know if the floodgates, quote unquote, are opening right now for PlayStation moving stuff to things like Xbox, but it does make you wonder about some of the future. And I would even look at Sony as, okay, we're expanding this a bit. What else can we do with something like the Switch 2? Right? And maybe Helldivers 2 also goes there. Maybe they look at that as a way for them to continue growing some of their IPs and they move Horizon over to the Switch 2. Or maybe they look at, hey, Microsoft's initiative is they're going to kind of merge PC with Windows with Xbox. So our games are kind of already going to show up there as we release them on PC. So why not get a head start here with Helldivers 2? It's very, very different right now when it comes to platforms in terms of like PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo. Things are kind of merging together, and it's definitely weird times right now to see Sony publishing PlayStation game on Xbox. But hey, it's Helldivers 2. I'm sure it'll do pretty well on Xbox as they continue to push along with this live service game. Still waiting for Sony to make a move with something like a big single-player game, but for now, hey, the multiplayer stuff seems to be opening up more and more. Next up, let's talk a bit more about some of those Xbox layoffs that have happened and a project that apparently just impressed a lot of the Xbox executives, but it still got shut down. This is with Zenimax, as Jason Schreier put out an entire report around this on Bloomberg. We can see this, where he says Blackbird, that was the code name for this MMO title over at Zenimax, was being shelved indefinitely, which means, yes, it was canceled. Shortly afterward, the rest of the team also lost their Slack accounts. They say the next few hours were marked by chaos and confusion as employees found themselves in a kind of limbo status, waiting to see what was going on. There were no emails, no messages from management or HR. Members of the team believed they had been laid off, but many had not yet received any official word from the company. We heard that there was like chaos behind the scenes, and this is sort of it, right? You're just sitting there like, okay, hold on a minute. Our game that you guys seem pretty happy with is shelved indefinitely. What happens to us? Well, you can kind of guess as we heard about a lot of the layoffs. It goes on to say, though, Blackbird's cancellation was particularly shocking because it had blown away executives at Xbox just a few months ago. During the demonstration in March, Spencer was enjoying the game so much that Matt Booty, the head of Xbox Game Studios, had to pull the controller away so they keep the meeting going, according to two people who were in the room. Okay, so you might be wondering, why was it canceled then if Phil Spencer was apparently so impressed they had to rip the controller out of his hands? Well, I think this answers it quite clearly. The team expanded to 300 people, delivered the impressive vertical slice in March, and was aiming to release in 2028, as in no time soon. And really looking at expanding up to 300 people, this is going to be a very costly endeavor. And I know what you're thinking, wait, it's Microsoft. They got no problem there. And yeah, you'd be right. Here's the thing, though, what's happening with Microsoft. People are starting to realize this, as I'm starting to see some reports connect the dots. They are going all in with AI. And AI, a lot of the development, it comes down to Google versus Meta versus Microsoft, and then OpenAI is in there. It's not cheap. I mean, we're talking, Microsoft mentioned earlier this year, $80 billion of investment. Right now, when I see these layoffs, I see them shifting capital around, and yeah, that includes just people in their jobs, to more or less meet the needs and the requirements of going all in with AI and just how much it costs. So looking at this, 2028, they were going to be developing for another 3 years or so with 300 people. While that should be a drop in the bucket to Microsoft, it's pretty clear they're looking to shave off costs anywhere possible to transfer over, to me anyway, what I think it is, to development of AI and trying to win that race. And unfortunately, while they may have had an awesome game here and Phil Spencer seemed to like it, when the call comes down from the top with Satya Nadella and he says, hey, you got to pull the plug on X amount of money and bring it over here, well, they got to look at something that's not coming out in the immediate. And unfortunately, that includes something like this Blackbird project as well as Perfect Dark. And in our last bit of news, let's somehow talk about MindsEye again, because, well, now we have at least some kind of address from Leslie Benzies, of course, was the name that was getting thrown around constantly to help sell this game. Ton of course, fame and notoriety from the good old days of Grand Theft Auto at Rockstar. Well, we can see this in a report from IGN, where they say story-driven action-adventure game MindsEye was initially designed to be a part of Everywhere. That's the Roblox for Adults creation platform led by former Grand Theft Auto design chief Leslie Benzies. Barb, or Build a Rocket Boy, eventually switched to focus on MindsEye, but it has so far failed to do the business for the company. And that's putting it lightly. As it came out, it was a disastrous launch. The game was in shambles, basically, in terms of it just working. It wasn't great. Meanwhile, Build a Rocket Boy's sources told IGN that Benzies finally addressed the staff following the release of MindsEye in a brief video call yesterday. That was July 2nd. According to 2 people present who asked not to be named in order to protect their careers, Benzies insisted Build a Rocket Boy would bounce back and relaunch MindsEye, blaming the studio and the game struggles on internal and external saboteurs, among other things. That's not me, okay, because I got the platinum in MindsEye. All I'm taking from this is that they relaunch it, there might be another platinum trophy out there with my name on it and for MindsEye. I don't know what they mean by relaunch this thing, because look, if the game came out and was in tip-top shape technically, I'll tell you now, it's still just not a great game. I mean, it's an okay game then, but it's nothing that's necessarily going to set the world on fire. Like, you gotta play this game, it's that good. Even the story, to me, was kind of a letdown. The ending was just disappointing. It felt abrupt and didn't really explain a lot, and it was all over the place, to put it lightly. So I don't really know what the relaunch would entail, other than, hey, let's just continue to build on this game over time, and in 2 years, it'll be completely different. All right, maybe that's it. But yeah, I don't know if I would necessarily blame internal or external saboteurs. It just, the game itself, it seemed like something where they were doing Everywhere. They move over to MindsEye thinking they can get a game out quickly to bring in more money, and then it just turns into a technical disaster that's attached to a game that would have been, to be quite frank, that IGN 7 out of 10 if it worked perfectly. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, have you played Helldivers 2? Okay, 68% say no, 32% say yes. There's still a lot of people out there who have not played it. And now, look, there are people in the comments who are like, I'm just not really interested in it, that's fine. But there are other people who are like, I haven't really played it on the PS5 or anything. Maybe if it came to this platform or that platform, which is mostly at this time just Xbox or I guess Switch 2, they might try it out. So yeah, there are still many people they could reach with a live service game that does need just more players constantly. So makes sense to me why Sony is making this move with a title like Helldivers 2. It'll just be more interesting to see how much further they maybe pursue a multi-platform strategy and approach, and if maybe they look at Nintendo with the Switch 2 as one where they can put a single-player game on it without it directly competing with the PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 6. Hey, we'll see with that one, but at least for now, Helldivers 2 coming up in August. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from JK, who says, I remember people were calling Nintendo greedy, but I don't ever recall them laying off massive people for a few extra bucks. So I think this is a while ago, like a long time ago. I feel like Nintendo did close a studio in Europe at one point. But no, for the most part, you're right in that Nintendo has just about grown year over year in terms of employee count. They have indeed in the past also worked to protect employees, where some of the top executives running Nintendo would take pay cuts to make sure they didn't have to do large numbers of layoffs or stuff. In Japan, though, that is kind of a thing where they will exhaust all options before there are significant layoffs. Now, that doesn't mean they don't have turnover in studios like Retro Studios, which over time has had people leave and then come in, and that's just kind of a consistent thing in general, even outside of Japan. But no, you're right. Nintendo typically has people who have stuck with them for decades now, especially in Japan, and a lot of their games, when they come out, are high quality, and they still have that quote-unquote Nintendo feel to them, and that's largely why Nintendo does invest quite heavily into their developers, into their employees, and while Nintendo gets beaten down about a lot of stuff online, that is certainly a bright spot for them. It's just the way that they treat their people who are, at the end of the day, creating the games that, make them money. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll leave it up here in a card, or maybe want to hear more about some of the game cancellations and layoffs with Xbox, I'll leave that right below it. Guys, have a great weekend. If you're celebrating the 4th of July today, have some fun, get some grilling done, hang out with the family, check out some fireworks, and hope that your neighbor doesn't decide to test that fire extinguisher tonight. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.